First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Racha Kudash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Ecclesiasticus, the first chapter, otherwise known as the book of Sirach. So, before reading this prologue, there is a bit more information on it that I have here in my physical scriptures, and I'll read that part, and then we'll go into the prologue. So it says here, Ecclesiasticus is an ethical treatise extolling the virtue of wisdom, written in Hebrew by a scholar named, it says Jesus here, but we know that's Greek for Joshua, which will be the English of that, and the Hebrew being Yahushai. This isn't the Messiah, Hamashiach. This is a man by the name of Yahushai. So, for the sake of not sounding confusing, I will refer to him as Joshua. So it says here, by a scholar named Joshua, son of Sirach, the author's grandson, an Alexandrian Jew, translated the work into Greek and added a prologue in about 132 BC. Ecclesiasticus is the longest apocryphal book and the only one with a known author, which is not really true, that last part. Like Proverbs, Ecclesiasticus deals with many practical subjects, from diet to domestic relationships. The longest continuous section of the book, are chapters 44 to 50, is the praise of famous men, which briefly describes a series of Hebrews of note, such as Enoch, Noah, Abraham, Zerubbabel, Nehemiah, and the high priest Simon, a contemporary and friend of the book's author. It says here, concerning the title Ecclesiasticus, meaning church book, is also known as Sirach, Ben Sirach, Wisdom of Sirach, and Wisdom of Joshua, the son of Sirach. The author, once again, as I said, I'm calling him by the name Joshua, which will be the English of Jesus. But it says here, Joshua, son of Sirach, wrote the book in Hebrew. Later, the author's grandson translated the work into Greek and added a prologue. And that's why he mentions in the prologue the how laborsome it is, right, to interpret or translate from one language to another, and how certain things have not the same force in them, because the grandson of Sirach, the author of the book, was translating the book itself from Hebrew to Greek. So this prologue here was really added by his grandson. Says here, Ecclesiasticus was written sometime between 200 BC and 175 BC from Jerusalem. So this first part is a prologue made, it says here, by an uncertain author, but I'll read it anyway. This Joshua was the son of Sirach and grandchild to Joshua of the same name. If I was reading it verbatim, it would say this Jesus, of the same name with him. This man therefore lived in the latter times, after the people had been led away captive and called home again. And this would be after the Babylonian captivity. And we were allowed to return back, what they would call the Second Temple Judaism, or that period. It says here, and almost after all the prophets, now his grandfather Joshua, as he himself witnesseth, was a man of great diligence and wisdom among the Hebrews, who did not only gather the grave and short sentences of wise men that had been before him, but himself also uttered some of his own, full of much understanding and wisdom. When as therefore the first Joshua died, leaving this book almost perfected, Sirach his son, receiving it after him, left it to his own son, Joshua, or Jesus. So the author, which wrote this, compiled this book here, died and passed it down to his son, whose name was Sirach. Sirach then passed it down to his son, whose name was Joshua, same name as his father, his grandfather, who, having gotten it into his hands, compiled it all orderly into one volume, and called it Wisdom, entitling it both by his own name and his father's name, in his grandfather's, and his grandfather's, alluring the hearer by the very name of wisdom to have a greater love to study this, to the study of this book, because people love wisdom, right? So if you hear, like the wisdom of Sirach, you're more inclined to read a book like that versus like the opinions of Sirach, right? Something like that. Or the opinions of Joshua, son of Sirach. It says here, it containeth therefore wise sayings, dark sentences, and parables, and certain particular ancient godly stories of men that please God. Also his prayer and song. Moreover, what benefits God had vouchsafed his people, and what plagues he had heaped upon their enemies. This Joshua did imitate Solomon, and was no less famous for wisdom and learning, both being indeed a man of great learning, and so reputed also. So he was known as a man of wisdom. So now getting into the actual prologue, the one that you see before you on here. It says here, the prologue of the wisdom of Jesus, or Joshua, the son of Sirach. Whereas many and great things have been delivered unto us by the law and the prophets, and by others that have followed their steps, for the which things Israel ought to be commended for learning and wisdom, and whereof not only the readers must needs become skillful themselves, but also they that desire to learn be able to profit them which are without. So when you read this book, one, you need to be willing to look into words, right? Look into things to understand what it means, but it will make you, to give you more wisdom. But at the same time, when you learn and understand and gain the wisdom of this book, you can then profit those that are without, right? Those that don't have this understanding, both by speaking and writing. It says, my grandfather Joshua, when he had much given himself to the reading of the law and the prophets and other books of our fathers, and had gotten therein good judgment. So he spent a lot of time reading the scriptures, right? The prophets, the law, the Torah, and other books of wisdom from our forefathers. He gained a good judgment, and was drawn on also himself to write something pertaining to learning and wisdom. So the Spirit got on him to also put together some writings of wisdom, to the intent that those which are desirous to learn and are addicted to these things might profit much more in living according to the law. So you'll notice there's obviously the words in this book are allured, or geared towards righteousness, right? Following the things in the law, right? Living a right life. And it's for those that are desirous to learn and addicted to these things. Wherefore let me entreat you to read it with favor and attention, and to pardon us wherein we may seem to come short of some words which we have labored to interpret. Because remember, this was Joshua, the grandson of Joshua, who was interpreting or translating the words of his grandfather from Hebrew, because this was originally written in Hebrew, into Greek. For the same things uttered in Hebrew and translated into another tongue, which in this case would be Greek, have not the same force in them, because the Hebrew language is quite different from, most other more modern languages, like even Greek, right? Or English, definitely English, or Latin. So sometimes in Hebrew, the way something is worded, it only like the power is in the wording, right? The punch is in the way it's worded, and it makes the most sense to native speakers of Hebrew to understand what is meant by that. And when you translate it, and let's say you have to translate it verbatim, it wouldn't really make as much sense unless somebody explained to you what that's supposed to mean. Because if you just translate it like word for word, yeah, the person may know what is actually being said, but they won't really get the point. It says here, and not only these things, but the law itself and the prophets and the rest of the books. So he's saying likewise, not just these words of wisdom, but the law, the prophets, and the rest of the writings have no small difference when they are spoken in their own language. No small difference meaning that there's a big difference between reading it in a different language versus reading it in the original Hebrew. For in the 38th year coming into Egypt, when Euergetes was king, that's Ptolemy the third Euergetes, and he's also mentioned in Daniel 11, right, in the 6 Syrian wars, and continuing there some time. So the Joshua here was in Egypt there. It says, I found a book of no small learning. No small is Old English for the reverse, right? Like it's not a light thing. It's not a small deal. It's a big deal. Therefore, I thought it most necessary for me to bestow some diligence and travail to interpret it, using great watchfulness and skill in that space to bring the book to an end, and set it forth for them also, which in a strange country are willing to learn, being prepared before in manners to live after the law. So there's the context of how you have the book of Ecclesiasticus or the book of Sirach, today. And basically what it took, or what went into putting in a state where it can be comprised in a readable way to benefit those that love wisdom and would want to read it. So now let's get into the actual book. So this is the book continuing, right? The book of Ecclesiasticus or Sirach, chapter 1, verse 2. Who can number the sand of the sea and the drops of rain and the days of eternity? Who can find out the height of heaven and the breadth of the earth and the deep and wisdom, right? And ultimately, none of us can really do this. Like what are you going to use, a measuring tape to get the breadth of the earth? You can't go and measure the height of the heavens or the depth of the deep. Okay. It says here, or wisdom. Wisdom hath been created before all things, and the understanding of prudence from everlasting. So wisdom, goes all the way back to the very beginning, created with the Lord. I mean, it is the breath of God, as it is said in Wisdom of Solomon. And the understanding of prudence is also here, it's saying, it's repeating the same point in different words, right? So wisdom was created before all things, meaning it was there in the very beginning. And the understanding of prudence, which is through wisdom, was also from everlasting, meaning it's ancient. It goes back to the beginning. The word of God, Most High, is the fountain of wisdom, right? So a fountain of wisdom is the source, right? Just like you have a fountain, which is a source of water. The word of the Lord is the fountain or the source of wisdom. And the word of the Lord is also symbolic for Yahushai. He is the word of the Heavenly Father, right? And it is through him that we get access to wisdom, right? He is the source of wisdom. It says here, and her ways are everlasting commandments. So if you keep the ways of wisdom, they're gonna guide you, okay, forever, right? As it says, everlasting. The ways of wisdom don't change, right? It's not going, oh, 1,000 years later now, the ways of wisdom have now changed, and now you may gain more wisdom, but it doesn't change. She doesn't change. It tells you that in Wisdom of Solomon. Verse 6, to whom hath the root of wisdom been revealed? And the root is like the when you look at a tree, the root is the source, right? Where the tree gets its life really from, because everything starts in the root, the ground. All right. And if the tree is uprooted, then it is no longer, it's dead. To who has the root of wisdom been revealed? Or who hath knowledge of her wise counsels? Unto whom hath the knowledge of wisdom been made manifest? And who hath understood her great experience? There is none wise and greatly to be Salaki, there is one wise and greatly to be feared, the Lord sitting upon his throne. And why? Because he created wisdom. Imagine that. We can't even fully comprehend wisdom, and here it is, the Most High created wisdom. Verse 8, Salaki, verse 9, he created her and saw her and numbered her, that is to measure, and poured her out upon all his works. So the Lord has poured wisdom out, and that's why it says that she by pureness in Wisdom of Solomon, right, she goeth through everything, right, by her pureness. So wisdom is in everything because it has been poured upon creation. Creation was founded through wisdom, and the Lord numbered or measured an amount of wisdom to be on all his works. So guess what? Even a ladybug has wisdom. Cats, dogs, trees, in the process of homeostasis, right? Which is, or not the process, but homeostasis, which is like the balance. If you look at like the ecosystem, all these animals, the synergy of life, it's all through wisdom. All right, even photosynthesis, right, is also a form of wisdom. It says she is with all flesh according to his gift. So wisdom is a gift from the Lord that's given to all flesh, right? All the living. And he hath given her to them that love him. And that's those that love the Lord. He gives wisdom to them. And that's like now you may say, well, wait, I thought all creation already has wisdom. Yeah, they do. But that's to a certain degree. This wisdom that the Lord gives to them that love him is a higher level. Okay? The highest quality of wisdom, which is on the right-hand side. It says here, the fear of the Lord is honor and glory and gladness. Because the fear of the Lord is also synonymous with wisdom, right? It's the beginning of wisdom. And it comes with what? Honor, glory, gladness, and a crown of rejoicing. The fear of the Lord maketh a merry heart. A merry heart is a happy mind. And giveth joy and gladness and a long life. Because when you fear the Lord, he'll give you wisdom. And when wisdom dwells with you, she'll bring you to that joy, gladness, and a long life through her instruction, her guidance, her peace. And you'll start to see that your life will start to be, better by the way you think, the decisions you make, and the things that you do ultimately. Whoso feareth the Lord, it shall go well with him at the last, and he shall find favor in the day of his death, right? Because if you fear the Lord and you live a life through wisdom, the Lord is going to, he's going to accept you, right, at the day of your death. You're not going to be worried about what judgment you're going to face having lived a wicked life. To fear the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and it was created with the faithful in the womb. So the faithful by inheritance, you might say, are born to fear the Lord. Just like the wicked in Psalm the 53rd chapter, right? Psalm 53, it tells you that, I believe it's 53. that they be born speaking lies. They go astray as soon as, from the womb. But the faithful, which are those that fear the Lord, wisdom is created with them in the womb. Their vessels fit for wisdom. She hath built an everlasting foundation with men, and she shall continue with their seed. And this is talking about the seed of the righteous. Okay, she's going to dwell and continue with the seed of the righteous. And let's get a quick precept that lines up with that point. Let's do holy souls, because it said their seed, right? This is Wisdom of Solomon 7:27. And being but one, she can do all things. This is speaking of wisdom. And remaining in herself, Salakia, she maketh all things new, and in all ages entering into holy souls. Right, in all ages, meaning in different time periods, because that's what an age is, and that includes different generations. She enters into holy souls, which are the seed of the righteous. She maketh them friends of God and prophets. So continuing back here in verse 16, to fear the Lord is fullness of wisdom, right? Because when you fear the Lord, that's the beginning of wisdom. But as you continue to fear the Lord, you start to grow in more and more wisdom. He starts to increase, that wisdom for you. You start to gain the fullness of her, which brings forth, as it says, and filleth men with her fruits. So you start to unlock more and more of the benefits or the fruits of wisdom, which brings you closer and closer to the Lord and raises you up higher and higher. It says here, she filleth all their house with things desirable, and the garners with her increase. And the garners are like your baskets, or where you store things. And this is just metaphorical speak for the benefits that come with wisdom, right? She's going to fill your house with desirable things, spiritually, which also leads to a physical benefit. The fear of the Lord is a crown of wisdom, making peace and perfect health to flourish, both which are the gifts of God, right? Peace and perfect health are both gifts of the Lord. And it and it enlargeth their rejoicing that love him. See, so wisdom causes you to rejoice even more, right? That is for those that love the Lord. Wisdom raineth down skill and knowledge of understanding, standing, and exalteth them to honor that hold her fast. So wisdom can be likened on to like rain, that is pouring down. Now, rain, we read above, right? Who can number the drops of rain? So wisdom is like rain, and each drop is skill and knowledge and understanding. And as it says here, and exalteth them to honor that hold her fast. Holding her fast is holding firmly onto wisdom is going to exalt you. Okay, you're going to be raised up through wisdom. The root of wisdom is to fear the Lord. You see that? So that's, if wisdom is like a tree planted, it starts, right, to take root in you. It starts with your fear of the Lord. And the branches thereof are long life. See, so when you fear the Lord, that root of wisdom, right, wisdom takes root in you. And as you continue in wisdom, the branches, as it grows within you, the branches are, as it says, long life, right, which are like different traits and different decisions that you make, which are righteous, that'll prolong your life, okay, by making you a pleasing vessel to Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. The fear of the Lord driveth away sins, and and where it is present, it turneth away wrath. Because if you fear the Lord, you're going to stay away from sin, right? You're going to, through wisdom, applying wisdom, flee from sin as from the face of a serpent. And where the fear of the Lord is, it turneth away wrath. Because when the dwelling or the habitation of the fear of the Lord is with those that do the things that are pleasing to the Lord, right? If you fear the Lord, you're going to do the things that are pleasing to him. You're going to stay within his commandments. And so long as you do that, you're going to avoid his wrath. A furious man cannot be justified, for the sway of his fury shall be his destruction. See? Because a furious man, one that is quick to get angry, and accustomed or addicted to strife, eventually that's going to be his destruction. Because not every situation requires to just lose it. And sometimes if you lack that self-control, it's going to be what brings your demise. A patient man will tear for a time, and afterward joy shall spring up onto him. Yeah, because sometimes, when you're patient, you got to endure, right? Suffering, you got to go through certain things, but it's temporary. Okay, and afterwards, if you're faithful in your patience, joy is going to spring up. All right, you're going to get that reward. Verse 24, he will hide his words for a time, and the lips of many shall declare his wisdom. Right, I'm also going to read verse 24 in the GNTD. Right, it says here, keep quiet until the right time to speak, and you will gain a reputation for good sense. See, that's the hiding his words for a time. You speak at the right time. You don't need to be speaking all the time. And the lips of many shall declare his wisdom, because they're going to speak well of you, of how wise you are. The parables of knowledge are in the treasures of wisdom. Okay, so wisdom's treasury is full of parables, right, of knowledge, of wise sayings. But godliness is an abomination to a sinner, and that's why they can't remain, in the domain of godliness. That's why they go the route of wickedness. Just as wickedness is abomination to the righteous, righteousness is abomination to a sinner. If thou desire wisdom, keep the commandments, and the Lord shall give her unto thee. Okay, because when you keep the commandments of the Lord, you show the Lord that you fear him. And when you show the Lord you fear him, he will begin to bless you with wisdom. For the fear of the Lord is wisdom and instruction, and faith and meekness are his delight. The Lord delights in one that is faithful, that has faith in him, and is meek, is humble, is lowly. Distrust not the fear of the Lord when thou art poor, right? Don't lose trust in the fear of the Lord when you're poor, or when you're going through, a hard time, when you're abased. And come not unto him with a double heart. When you come to the Lord, you can't be double-minded. You have to be, you have to come believing that he is, and he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. The Lord does not want somebody that's coming to him shaky, because that means you don't trust, you don't have full faith that the Lord is of a full power. Be not an hypocrite in the sight of men, and take good heed what thou speakest. Yeah. So don't be a hypocrite, don't say you're because a hypocrite is like, to an ungodly, soul to the Lord. Right? You're doing things you're preaching against. You call out people for things that you do. And that's just, that's ill practice, right? Take good heed what thou speakest, right? Be careful the things that come out of your mouth. Verse 30, exalt not thyself lest thou fall. When you exalt yourself, you become proud, right? You boast yourself, you try to put yourself on a pedestal, and the Lord is going to kick that pedestal out from under you and bring dishonor upon thy soul, right? Where you're publicly, when the Lord humbles you, you're now ashamed. And so God discover thy secrets. See that? And cast thee down in the midst of the congregation. The Lord's going to expose you and bring you down, humble you in front of everybody. Because thou camest not in truth to the fear of the Lord, but thy heart is full of deceit. Because if you came in the truth of the fear of the Lord, you would have known that faith and meekness are his delight, and you would have came in a humble spirit, as opposed to trying to exalt yourself and now having your dirty laundry aired, because the Lord is trying to humble you. And that brings us to the end of the book of Ecclesiasticus, the first chapter, or the book of Sirach, the first chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rakha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.